Thank you for tuning into the Forward Together podcast, an extension of Forward Summit, where we bring Indigenous communities together with Canadian industry leaders to spark meaningful conversations. We host some of the most inspiring voices and powerful leaders you'll hear anywhere. And now, those conversations continue year-round, right here on the podcast. I'm your host, Rod Miller, and I have the privilege of sitting down with these incredible guests, sharing their teachings, their stories, and their vision for advancing Indigenous prosperity and building a stronger Canadian economy for all. This is the Forward Together podcast, because the path to a stronger Canada is one we walk together. Let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Forward Together podcast. My name is Rod Miller, and I am your host for this podcast. I'm also the president and chief operating officer of the Connect Partnership Group, the producers of the Forward Summit, as well as the Workforce Forward programs. And I am really excited about the guests I have today. I think when I think of personality, this is probably one of the brightest personalities that I know and I have gotten to know. Darian Kovacs is an Indigenous Métis Nation entrepreneur, digital marketing expert, educator, and advocate for Indigenous representation in business and media. He is best known as the founder and managing partner of Jelly Digital Marketing and PR, and the creator of the Jelly Academy, a digital marketing training school, and someone who I'm very interested to have a conversation with today. So, Darian, welcome to the Forward Together podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's lovely.
It's so great to have you.
Yeah, there's so many things, so many places we could go. Oh, the places we will go.
Oh, the places we will go, the things that we will see. That sounds like Dr. Seuss to me, if I'm not mistaken, right? I think, am I right? The places we will go on green eggs and ham. Listen, I think one of my curious questions, which I think the audience would love to know about more, is can you tell us a little bit about the origin story of Jelly and how you, as a Métis entrepreneur, got into PR, got into the digital media space? Take us back.
Yeah, I think like a lot of professionals, I was trying different career paths. I was working in publishing to working on the software side, but I realized everything I did when I worked for event production, it was the marketing side that I really felt passionate about. I really got excited about. I ran these events for an imprint of HarperCollins for a few years, and I remember when it came to the actual event, I would kind of get bored and just cause more mischief than be helpful, because I was just more interested in, could we sell out the event? How many people could we get to this event? How many people are going to sign up for this event? But once it came, that wasn't my thing. So I wasn't an event person. So finally, I had this really cool opportunity to start Jelly Marketing, focusing just on the things I love doing, which was a mix of public relations. And at the time, there was only a very small handful of social media agencies, so helping people with their social media. And then helping people with running their digital ads. So we were one of the early Google partners. And back then, this is a bit of a throwback, because I had done a bunch of work in youth work. I was quite familiar with back then it was Nexopia and MySpace.
Right.
Facebook had launched, and I was still a University of Victoria student. And so I had a Facebook account. And so I realized I had this ability to be a bridge between small business owners and the social media world, and how could they leverage it to grow their business.
Very cool. Very cool. It takes me back to the MySpace days, even further back to the AOL days.
Yeah.
Way back when my kids were just born, and now they're parents, but way back when. What was it that you saw in the marketplace that you felt was the right kind of place for Jelly to enter?
Yeah, I saw that there was traditional PR shops, agencies. There was a few just doing maybe social media, just getting kind of starting up. There was a few just running digital ads. And I realized there wasn't anyone merging those three, because I felt and still do feel like PR and social media are so combined. And it's very affirming to see since then a lot of roles include both PR and social media, as social media is a form of relating to the public. So we kicked it off is because it was like a combo of the three. And before that, I was helping develop apps. And so we focused mostly on app marketing at the time and event marketing, just because of the event background. And then I worked in software, which was a fundraising software. So we were doing a lot of work with charities, doing awareness and fundraising campaigns. And then for a good season being in Vancouver, we worked a lot with building developers who were doing pre-sale marketing. So they'd sell, 80 units that the shovel is yet to hit the ground, but you could buy a unit. And then we spent a lot of time working with mid-sized law firms. That's still one of the kind of our specialties, which is think 20 to 30 person law firm. So not big enough that you need a full-time marketer, but big enough that you've got a managing director. It's kind of where we've specialized.
And has that evolved over the years, or has that kind of been the stable for Jelly, those areas?
Developers, they've kind of declined in that sense, but the law firms have been kind of steady. Anyone really needing, and we've learned our niche is performance marketing. So anyone who needs leads, measurable leads, like we do a project for UVic now where they're doing some research and they needed research volunteers. And so our job is to recruit them. But I think the thing that I'm most excited about that we did was about 5 years ago, we had a client come to us, and loveliest client, Rachel, and she was like, hey, I'm taking over more of my family's business and I have more time in my hands. I want to learn how to do what you do. And we're like, that sounds lovely. And previous to this, I had worked in publishing, as I mentioned, and had written some curriculum books, and I loved teaching and curriculum stuff. I was like, let's do this. And so we tried this experiment where we taught her what we did. And so she was able to take some of the work in-house and lower her contract with our agency. And then we saw there was a few other companies that were interested in this, and we kept growing this, and we kept doing it mostly for in-house companies. And then a university down the road was offered their facility to try kind of an open class. And we did that. So we needed a logo. So we designed this logo for what we called at the time, very unoriginal, Jelly Academy, just taking our agency's name. And we launched Jelly Academy. And that school and training is now kind of about 50% of my time now. So I spend time on the training academy and then time on the actual agency side.
Well, very cool. So it sounds to me like there are some kind of business values or just even values here that have really been part of you creating this. And I know I've spoken to many, Métis individuals, myself being one, and there's this kind of entrepreneurship that exists within kind of the Métis community, where many Métis are known for their entrepreneurship, or the Métis are known for their entrepreneurship. What is it about your background as a Métis and your values that has helped you kind of shape Jelly Marketing and Jelly Academy into what it is today? What's informed you there?
I think there's an empathy I have with business owners who are, struggling or trying to hustle and try to grow something from nothing. And I think I understand them and get them. And so I think that's part of why we started Jelly Academy was you shouldn't always have to outsource. You have the ability to do it in-house. And sometimes it's almost better to bring it in-house, especially at the stage of your business, maybe life cycle. Sometimes it's better to outsource. But I think the value that they should have the option. And I think that value of bridge building, has always been a part of our history. And so being able to, in a sense, build a bridge between a small business owner who maybe finds, digital marketing, social media intimidating, but Jelly Academy has really been that bridge of accessibility and orientation to say, hey, look at these things you can do here. Let us expose how SEO really works. At least you now have the option to do your own SEO. Now that you get it, we built this nice, safe, hopefully very stable bridge between you and your business and your revenue growth and SEO, and you can understand the connection. And at least you now know you could do it yourself.
So that's it. I want to kind of pursue that a bit, because that to me is an interesting perspective, right? So you come in and you help the organization. It's kind of capacity building in a way where you're helping them understand and be able to learn about and leverage, the technologies, the social media aspects, all that stuff that you do, and you bring that in-house and help them learn. That to me hits me as unusual for an agency to do that. Is that something that you would say is somewhat unique?
Yeah, because I think there's this, and actually I'm gonna acknowledge a book I read all about the serviceberry. People also know the bush as a Saskatoon berry, but the serviceberry is a beautiful book written by the same woman who wrote Braiding Sweetgrass. So Robin Wall, I don't know how to say Kimmerer, I don't know how to say her last name, but she wrote an amazing book. And actually the serviceberry is more of an essay than it is a book. So if you want a short read, what I love about it is that the serviceberry is this idea that this bush grows in the wild and we didn't water it. And this is this great, I'm going to mess up the quote, but we didn't water it. We didn't plant it. We didn't feed it with sun or anything, but we can benefit from it, right? And it's this idea of abundance. And there's so much abundance out there that I think if we can learn to walk in that and know that there is always going to be more clients. And if a company is meant to bring that work in-house, we should give them that option. And they shouldn't be stuck with only being able to outsource or nothing. And so I think there's also, there's been some bad actors in the agency realm. And so in some cases, it's nice to get them free from that.
Yeah.
And also in our case, it's knowing that they're going to leave and maybe 6 months, a year from now, and this is not in the agenda, but the glorious thing in this is that they're at a party and someone's like, oh man, I tried digital marketing with this shop, or I outsourced this and I had a bad experience. Then they're going to be like, oh man, digital marketing works if you just know how, or if you do it right. And then they stand up for our industry, and in turn, rising tide rises all boats.
Kind of makes me think too of the concept of all my relations, and acknowledging all the relationships that we have and we can make. And well, not just human relationships, but relationships with the bush. As an example, the bush is a giver of something. And it really is about us being able to give back and give, I think maybe even give into that as individuals to help other people be successful. To your point, a rising tide raises all boats. It's a very powerful metaphor. So what is, you've worked on a lot of big brands. I did my research, and there's Lazy Boy to RBC. Mm-hmm. What are the core principles that helped you scale, but kept you with that Indigenous lens really at the front and center of the work that you
Yeah, I think when you think of Indigenous lens, I think there's some organizations that maybe think, if you put a feather on it, it works, right? If you But, it's like there's an old Portlandia skit, you put a bird on it, right? But I think the essence of, nurturing and fanning the flame of storytelling has been a part of who we are. Storytelling, it's the core of PR. Storytelling is the core of good social media. It's the core of good digital ads. Walking in that mentality of like kind of the reciprocal nature and kind of the generous abundance walk, I think comes from the Indigenous way, and only taking what you need. And I think that's where, again, our model has always been to walk slowly with clients and to kind of grow jellies slowly. And I'm grateful for that. And again, there's been temptations and times when we grew too fast, or we had, seasons where we've made mistakes for sure. But I think the reminding who we truly are and remembering why we got into this, which was to help grow people's stories, brands, and organizations, and remembering that core principle has kind of kept us steady.
Well, it's very, very powerful. It is about, in some ways, it's about also building, community, right? Like really getting people to kind of come together in a common space. And I think of that from the lens of an organization that you might work with to help them with their kind of their messaging and their core marketing and the kind of things that they're doing as an organization, where they can all come together through your help and your work as well too. That's fantastic. I have to ask you a quick question though. It's sitting in my brain. It's part of our agenda, but I have to ask you, how'd you come up with the name Jelly, and what's behind that name?
Yeah, it's real simple. I was out for brunch with my mom at the Fairmont waterfront, and on the table there was these little mini jars of jelly, and I took a few of them after I'd bought the 2-word domain name jellymarketing.com. Yeah. And I just put them in the sink at our office, took the stickers off, and ordered stickers, and this became our business card. We went on and actually got more legitimate, like real business cards, but actually at one season, this is funny, there's a print shop in Abbotsford, it's where we were based, that printed them, and they were scratch and sniff. But then their print shop smelled like strawberry for 3 days, and they're like, sorry, Dan, we can't do it again. It was just too overwhelming for us. So at one point we did have scratch and sniff business cards, but now it's like jelly, and on it, if you ever get one, there's a secret little website where you can order peanut butter and bread, which is really fun. Yeah, and also same thing with that. We wanted to like practice what we preach, and when we do events or we hand it out, we wanted it to be experiential. We wanted it to be measurable. Yeah. So even now when we give this out at events, we know how many people go to the website and where they found it, and was that a good investment to promote our jelly marketing at said event.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So I'm going to ask this when we come together at West Coast in September. I might have to come out a bit early and pick up some jelly.
And we, Jelly Academy, we have had raspberry for a while. We just switched to a local jammery called East Van Jam. They're amazing. And we just have a beautiful blueberry that is a recent release. It's delicious. I'm actually a raspberry jam guy myself, but I am falling in love with this blueberry.
So I was always a raspberry person, and
Mhm.
then I ended up having blueberry, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's
Yeah.
it. That's my thing. Oh my God. So speaking of Jelly Academy, because I want
Yeah.
to explore this one a little bit. How was that idea? Was that idea born at the same time as Jelly Marketing, or is that something that kind of came up and kind of you saw the opportunity to do some training and development? I know you talked about working with a program, but how did that kind of come about? What's the origin of that? And share that with us.
It's probably maybe that principle of improv where we had a client ask, hey, could you train me? And it was like, yes, and. Right? It's like in improv, you always like, yes, and you're like you. So we trained her, and then it just kept growing. And then someone offered us a space at their university to trial it as a thing. And yes, and let's give it a try. And again, always being open for it to like not work, for it to fail. And I think the other thing we've learned was through the training, we're also an hour outside of Vancouver. So we're in Fort Langley. It's a beautiful place, home of the historic fort and, some great wineries and breweries out here. But it's an hour from Vancouver. So we actually had an organization promote our school and say, you should come take this course. It's amazing. They promote it to all their Vancouver folks. But she's wrote me and said, Darian, I can't promote your course anymore because I'm getting all this criticism for promoting something in Langley. It's too far and people think they're never going to go there. So we, at the time, tried out this tool called Zoom that we were trying to get our clients to use. And then a year later, COVID hit. But we had already built an entire course based around Zoom. So we're able to do some really great national promotions and national training because of that, working with all the different time zones. So that was just, again, right time, right place. And I think the biggest thing has been like our alumni who have come. They're either these business owners whose businesses have increased in revenue. They're people who have gotten jobs. There are people who have gotten raises. Those are the three types of students that have kind of fueled us to continue to invest in and grow and develop Jelly.
So is it face-to-face, online, blended, both?
We have mostly done on Zoom these days, and it's both on demand on Zoom or through an LMS, so learning management system. We use Thinkific, made right here in Vancouver, or it's live on Zoom, or we've done some in person when necessary, and those are awesome. And then we recently launched a new course called Digital Literacy because we realized we were turning away about 30% of people applying for our program because they just didn't have the digital capacity.
Right.
But right now we're in a time where everyone's excited about this thing called AI and excited about kind of future digital opportunities, but there's still a huge group of people in rural communities where even in urban communities where they don't have the digital capabilities or capacities. And so we built a whole course. Actually, one of our alumni came through our course. His business took off, grew because of what he learned. So he came back and said, how can I give back? So he built this digital literacy course with us that we've launched. And so that one's designed to be in person where he'll go into community with a group of 20 to 40 people who just really need to learn how to just get their digital foundations started.
Wow, very cool. So I'm going to ask a follow-up to that kind of Jelly Academy question. So when you think about this from the kind of the Indigenous student lens, what do you think are the most important digital skills for Indigenous youth today, and why are those important skills to have?
Yeah, I think the best one is your story, your brand. Who are you? So the whole notion of search engine optimization is when your name is Google search, what shows up? When your organization is Google search, what shows up? What is your digital footprint? So how can you make sure that you as a young person are controlling your footprint on a positive manner? So laying, claim to your LinkedIn channel, making sure that, if you've got some videos, YouTube, you're making sure your digital footprint when Google search is solid, is healthy. And again, if you're especially in the job market or looking for a job, LinkedIn is still very great right now. It isn't too noisy with ads. So I'd highly encourage that. The other one being is learning to write in the form of like listicles. So an article in the form of a list. So if you can get some listicles out, being able to almost kind of get your thinking around understanding the world around you or even dissecting the world around you in the form of a listicle. BuzzFeed made them really popular where it was like top 10 places to visit in Vancouver, or top 20 restaurants in Toronto. But there's ways to also be like, hey, top 5 things I learned as a high school graduate who's Indigenous. Top 5 things to consider when going to a conference. Top 10 ways to network at an upcoming conference. So things that those are really popular right now. Google loves them because they rank really well in searches. ChatGPT loves it. It pulls from it, especially if you have titled it well so that when you are able to almost reverse engineer how people Google search and ChatGPT search and answer that question in the form of your blog title or article title, that's what shows up in the searches.
It's okay. Never even thought about that. And I'm a big BuzzFeed guy because I just I like BuzzFeed for it's kind of entertainment in a way, right? Top 10, whatever. So Darian, one of the questions I have for you is around Indigenous skills for the workplace today. When Indigenous students are thinking about their careers and the different things that they want to do, what would you say are some of the core digital skills that Indigenous or even non-Indigenous people should have when they're thinking about making that move into the corporate world?
Yeah, I think, again, just going back to, I don't work for LinkedIn, full disclosure. I appreciate them, respect them, love them. But again, a good LinkedIn presence and being able to write clearly on there, update what's going on in your life in there, understanding how to just do short little micro videos. There's an amazing tool called StoryTap, which helps enable people to answer 3 simple questions and just get in the habit of answering 3 questions. Another one is just understanding how SEO works. SEO more than ever has a huge impact on where businesses grow from small to medium to large enterprises. So what is the impact of on-site SEO, which is kind of the technical aspects, and what's the impact of off-site SEO? Those are those backlinks and articles that you're getting. And I think pick up a newspaper, magazine, follow the news, follow reporters who are writing interesting things, follow what they're writing about, so that when and if you have a story or you feel like you have something to bring to the table corporately, you can connect to the right reporter and make sure that there's a match.
That's very cool. I had read in the background as well, too, that in the beginning, you focused on sponsoring charity galas and community events. Yeah. Tell us a bit about that. What ROI did you get out of that? What was tangible, intangible?
That's a deep cut, Ron. That's like, wow, not many people. I've tried to keep that on it was probably one of the,
buddy,
coolest things.
No, it's all good.
No, it's great. No, I think it's amazing. I just don't talk about it too much, but because it's probably the coolest, most interesting thing we tried, where I realized there's lots of things you can do for marketing. And we were a digital marketing firm. We were like one of the big Google partners, in Western Canada, but there's nothing beats something in person. And so we did our homework and found the top 10 biggest charity events in Vancouver that had tickets typically over $250 to $500 a ticket. The influencers are there, the decision makers of businesses. So we would sponsor them all, and we didn't have a lot of cash when we started, so we would often do it in kind with photos and videos or the gift bag you got at the end of the night when you left the event. And that is how we grew Jelly in the early days. It's how we got Spence Diamonds. It's how we got so many different accounts, was because we were in the room and they just perceived us as being bigger than we were because we were at the table. And typically you don't sponsor those events till later.
Yeah.
But the concept being, I love this idea of, my grandma is a pacifist and would say, you feed 2 birds with 1 grain, right? There's a more violent version of that saying, but if the end of the night, if we sponsor, the Jewish Community Center, JCC Gala, or, Canuck Place, or whatever it was, the Children's Hospital, worst case, we didn't get any new clients out of it.
Yeah.
But that's worth it. But at the same time, they raised a bunch more money. The event did a lot better with a really great video. They got some great promotion out of it. Everyone left with a really great gift bag because we were a part of it. And so I could sleep well at night knowing our marketing efforts and energy was put into something that had a multi-pronged approach that, we still got great clients and it was great exposure and awareness of who we were, but we also were able to support some amazing charities right when Jelly started from year 1.
Wow, very cool. And there's this kind of like capturing the moment where, people have come off of this amazing experience and they get something at the end of it that's tangible, that says it's, this is you, and this is your organization. That is super powerful. So sorry for bringing that one up.
No, it's great. And the only reason I don't talk about it is if someone ever asked me hey, Darian, what would you do? If you were to start an agency again, I would just say double down on that. It was the best thing we ever did. And again, it's that whole, abundance mentality of saying, hey, why wait until we're killing it to do this? Because again, there was a guy I grew up with, big influence on my life. And he had an experience where his uncle died, passed away. And he had just been bitten by this spider and given this power. And as his uncle is passing away, he says to him, those with great power have great responsibility. Right? And so this is Uncle Ben speaking to Peter Parker, who went on to become Spider-Man. Right. And so I grew up with these comics in my life. And so I think we have this great power as marketers and as advertisers, and we have to use it for good. And I've seen too often used for financial gain and personal gain. And I think there's, statues will fall apart, things rust. And so we have this amazing opportunity to use it for good. And so why not do that from day one instead of waiting until you've made it? Because even once you've made it, I had this old man in my life tell me like, well, once you've made it, if you're in the habit of not giving and the habit of not supporting, you're going to keep that habit up. So why would you change your habit?
Right. That's very insightful, very powerful. So you had mentioned a couple of times in our conversation so far today where you kind of were ahead of the curve on some things. And I'm kind of curious. I'm going to ask you to look into your crystal ball now. Where do you see, I know the digital economy is like a big bucket of things, but where do you see digital marketing and media going like in the next 5 years? Because there's been such rapid, AI as an example, such rapid change and evolution. What do you see coming that we may not be seeing?
Yeah, I'd say more than ever because of what I call it AI slop that's out there right now. It's bad. There's so much slop, so much miscommunication, so much confusion. And it's really sad, especially for those that are being taken advantage of and confused.
Yeah.
I'd say silent social is more important than ever. So those are, think like Discord servers that you're maybe a member of. Think a WhatsApp private group that you're a member of with a bunch of people in your community. Think a closed Facebook group. Those communities they've always been important, but they're going to be even more crucially important. Reddit, more than ever, every month it increases the amount of people who add Reddit to their Google searches because they want anonymous reviews and feedback and thoughts. And Reddit does a pretty good job of protecting their community from shills, which is a term meaning people that are there just to sell something.
Yeah.
So I'd say those places where your energy needs to go. And then really, I think we're going to have a much more productive workforce. Like all of a sudden, everyone has access to a personal assistant, an editor, a writing help. And so I hope that energy with the extra capacity we have as humans is used for maybe something more positive.
Yeah.
But I don't know, because again, you look at the Industrial Revolution when people realized that these machines could do a lot of the work they were doing with their labor, but their extra free time went into more, let's call it, frivolous activities and, exciting things. And so my hope is maybe we, with this extra free time, we might use it for maybe ways to change the world or to help people or to be generous. But I might just be having rose-colored glasses and overly optimistic about it. But that's the hope.
It's interesting because I think of how AI can write you a book or it can write you a story. And I wonder, particularly from the lens of Indigenous people, where storytelling is so critical to how we communicate and how we actually gather history orally as well too. What's important for us to think about when we're balancing that automation, like AI or something, while being in the Indigenous realm of telling stories and keeping the heart of that culture alive? Is there thoughts and concerns or ideas you have around that?
Well, my thing is like, it's a weird mix where people are like, don't steal our stories, but also like, man, give me every opportunity to tell my story. Like, get me on CBC, put me on APTN. Like, that's all out there and it's all now open source knowledge and information because it's been broadcasted. But I think what's more important than ever is like the issue of compensation, people whose artwork is taken or artwork, the artists aren't as needed because they can do it on AI.
Yeah.
So I think acknowledging artists, telling the story behind the artist is more important than ever. So I think whenever you do a logo or a design or an art piece, like telling that artist story is going to be more and more powerful. Secondly, I think being able to tell stories in a way that no one else can. So that's stories in real life, live storytelling, stories in a way that comes from original, kind of storylines that are yours and you own it. And so I think that the tricky thing with AI is that there is not, like in the same way you learn in university, you always got to have a bibliography, right? Like footnotes and acknowledge where you got it from, where AI, because they're taking from like 30 different sources, right? And scraping from everything, they often don't acknowledge unless you're willing to dive deeper into the kind of behind the scenes and grab where it took all that information from. But rarely does someone acknowledge where they got that from. So the hope is acknowledgements are made, live storytelling becomes even more prevalent, and people, artists and storytellers are compensated just as good.
It's interesting. I'll take a bit of a tangent. I'm also and have been an instructor at post-secondary, and I teach in the areas of leadership and strategy. I often, the traditional way of measuring your knowledge and retention was to write a paper on a topic, and I tell you, there was a few years, even a few years ago, I was getting these chat GPT AI generated papers that were actually they were quite good and they were quite readable. What they lacked though, they lacked the referencing that you needed to support like the arguments that you're putting forward and so on. But it made me really think about the impact that AI does have on how we live, how we learn, and maybe even how we question things, right? Like we don't want to take it all for fact because to your point, it's just scraping data from the web as we know it. So interesting perspective. I have a question for you. So I'm an ex-sales guy, sales leader, and very metricized in my approach. And we in marketing, we have click-through rates and open rates and all these things. In sales, we have sales funnels. What are the social or community impact indicators that you use outside of that to know that your work is really moving the needle for your client that you're working with?
Yeah, it's really easy. So all of our work we do with our clients is measured by conversion. So ticket sales each day, leads for a law firm is a big one. And the big thing with the nuance with law firms is we can send them a bunch of leads, but then we also track a second piece, which is just as, if not more important, is how many files were opened from those leads. So were they qualified leads?
Right.
And the bigger thing is conversions. And then we track back, thanks to Google Analytics, that you can track to see where did those conversions come from. So what's the attribution by which they convert?
Very interesting. Very interesting. Okay, so I got a couple more questions as we kind of begin to come to a close on this one, but I wanted to ask you one for somebody who's an Indigenous listener here out in the land listening to us, and they're sitting on some great business idea, but they feel that they're undercapitalized or underrepresented. What is the first actionable step that you would recommend from your perspective as an Indigenous entrepreneur?
Whether it's connecting to your IFA, your IFI, Indigenous Financial Institutions. So NACA website has a list of them all. They're incredible. I've gone to my IFI and it made a huge difference. It helped us break through a glass ceiling we had. So I can't give, huge shout out to Brian Gillespie in the TAC office in North Vancouver. Every one of them is incredible. I know that Métis nations some of them have their own IFIs, are regional based. Check them out. They're incredible. Some of the things I love, like Kickstarter, I love the fact that we still have a tool like Kickstarter where it's an amazing way to like test your product out to see even if it's a good idea. Because even then, sometimes I've encouraged people to do a Kickstarter first and then they realize, man, no one sponsored my Kickstarter. Maybe this was a bad idea. And I was like, well, it's good you found out now before you invested all this money. Like you see this on Dragon's Den and Shark's Tank where it's like, they're like, well, I'm in $1 million. And they're like, well, this isn't a great idea. Or 7 other people are doing it and you're in a very red water industry and you don't have the backing to do it. So IFI test it out on those Kickstarters. And I think like anything, like unless people are really asking you for it and pushing you for it, it's like, again, that's maybe my take more is like, maybe just wait, maybe kind of, pause a little bit. And again, we've never lived in a time more than ever where you can like actually put something out on Kickstarter and it blows up and does so well. And it's the most amazing zero risk way to test a business idea.
Yeah. I can't recall if I have a Remarkable tablet. I don't know if you know Remarkable, but I have
they're amazing. My partner gave me one actually.
Okay. So, I think that was one. I think that was a crowdsourcing funded project. Might have been Kickstarter or not, but it's amazing. So I love that idea. Okay. One last question for you. As you're looking forward into the future, let's say it's 2030, what does a thriving, inclusive Canadian digital marketing landscape look like? And what role do you hope that Jelly will have, and particularly from the Indigenous perspective of inclusion? What do you see coming our way?
This is going to sound funny, but I hope that us, like folks, the agencies that get hired to do Indigenous consulting and Indigenous perspective don't have any more work. Because all of these companies have hired Indigenous talent in-house. So they're walking to the water cooler, they're on Slack, they're on Teams, and they're engaging with their Indigenous team members and not needing to outsource for perspective and ideas.
Wow, that is brilliant. And that is the piece. Darian, thank you for your time. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for all that you do. I really appreciate your time today. Thanks for joining us on the Forward Together podcast.
My pleasure. We're all in this together. Is that your theme? Do you guys have a theme song yet?
No, but maybe we'll have to chat GPT that one to give us a song.
Forward together. Yeah. It's lovely. It's great.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time. So good to see you.
Thank you for joining us on the Forward Together podcast. These conversations share the voices, stories, and teachings that are shaping Indigenous prosperity and strengthening Canada's economy. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if your company would like to support and amplify these important conversations, connect with our media partner, the Davis Media Company, publisher of Forward Magazine, to explore sponsorship opportunities. And of course, the best way to experience these conversations is in person. Join us at Forward Summit East in Ontario, October 8th and 9th, where Indigenous communities and industry leaders come together to build relationships, share knowledge, and create lasting partnerships. It's an incredible opportunity to learn, to listen, and to be part of Canada's journey toward a stronger, more inclusive economy. Let's keep listening, learning, and walking this path. Forward together.